Somebody just left a message in the comments section and they wanted to know if I ever broke anything really expensive at work. Now, I worked at 5 different companies and I never broke anything. And I mean, I'm talking, I worked with glass tubes, glass rods, glass everything. You feel like you're in a china shop. But why I think I never did is I'm overly cautious. I'm thinking two or three steps ahead. Now I'm thinking I did screw up one time, and it bothered me like more than it should. I had a Nova. I got to think what it was like a '67 Nova, and it had 283 in it, which is a Chevy short block, two-speed transmission. And I used to slide under it and drain the oil, and I used to repair it myself. So I was in Florida, and my father called to see how I was doing, and he asked me, "What kind of car do you think he should buy?" I said, "Look, you've always had Plymouths and Chryslers, and they're garbage. They're always garbage for you." I said, "Why don't you go with a Nova?" And he said, "Okay." And he bought a Nova. He surprised me. And believe it or not, he bought a 1972 Nova, and it was considered the worst made car of that year. But he got a good one. Got 8 years out of that. Well, he had to go to a funeral for the family. I think it was up in Buffalo. And when he got back, he was like, really, I think the car might have done something, or he suspected something. And he started whining like a little girl. And I want the oil change. Well, go get it changed. No, I want you to change the oil. The whole thing. And I'm like, it's like 10 degrees outside with wind chill factor. Well, I got the oil and the whole thing. So I said, all right. So now you got to remember, I have a '67 Nova, 283 engine. I think he had what was called a 307. It was a bigger engine, I'm pretty sure. And I had the Johnny Creeper, the Johnny whatever it was, the car creeper. You could lay on your back and slip under the car. And I went in there real quick and I undid the hex bolt to drain the oil. And same as mine. I drained the oil, and after I drained the oil, I put the plug back in, and I added oil. My father puts the car in the driveway. Now he goes next day. He goes to go to work, and he's going to trying to go up a hill, and the car won't go up the hill. So two cops came along, and one of the cops was my father's friend where he worked, son, and they pushed the car. Back in the old days, believe it or not, they had extra bumper guards on police cars, and they could push a car off to the side. They said, "Look, we'll push you up to the maintenance place or up to the gas station." The guy came out, and he puts the dipstick in, and he says, "You have no transmission fluid." So my father says, "I don't know." He says, "Yesterday we changed the oil." Guy checks the oil. He says, "It's real high. It's way too high." So my father goes, "Well, put the would be transmission fluid in," and the car worked. So he comes home. He comes in through the door, and he tells me, and I'm like, "I'm clueless. I'm totally clueless." I said, I did the same bolt or the same plug, I should say plug, as my car, but my car was different." So this guy was over the house, and he goes out under there, and right away he says, "What you did was you drained the transmission fluid, and then you added the oil to the oil, and now you got, instead of 4 quarts, I think it was 4 quarts, and now you have 8 quarts." So I went out and I drained the oil and went and got more oil and put it in, and it read good. My father watched it for a week. We watched the transmission uh, level, and everything was fine. He got 8 years out of that Nova. Oh, he sold it to a guy that drove it for another 5. Then that guy died, and they sold it again. But anyway, the car was unstoppable. So this guy that went under, and he kept, over the years, he kept bringing that up. I said, "Look," I said, "it was like 10 degrees out there. I went sliding under there on my, what the hell was that thing called? A car creeper? I think that's what it was called. It was a creeper, but I think it was a Johnny Creeper, or it had a dopey name to it. And it was one of the better ones. I bought it. It's got the little pillow on the one end. Well, anyway, the guy was a total screw up. He was a fathead. He was a dummy. But he noticed right away that I pulled the wrong plug. And when I looked at it, I realized absolutely the two cars were different. And it was a different engine. My father had the bigger engine. But this guy, and I almost went off on him one day. I said, I screwed up once, and I keep hearing about it. And you screw up like every week, and I'm bailing you out all the time. But I didn't, because I always had manners. You'd never pick on someone like that. I do now. Oh, now it's like someone starts on me, I fire back at them right away. But I'm thinking, did I ever break something real expensive? As a little kid, this kid down the street had a fire engine. It had a bell on it and a string. You pull the string. Well, I was riding around on my bicycle, and I would stick my toe out from the bike, my foot and my toe, and I'd ring the bell and ring the bell. And then the other kids were doing it, and I didn't realize they were hitting it hard, and they were cracking the. It was made out of white metal in those days, and I come around. I just barely touched it, and the bell fell. The bell fell off the fire engine. Of course, I took the full blame. The woman was going, whatever made you? I said, look, I was barely touching that bell. You know what I mean? It was just to show accuracy, and the other kids were just punching it. And white metal, if you've ever dealt with it, you can't really fix it. So that fire engine went to a kid down the street, and it didn't have a bell on it in those days. I did break a few things. One time I was in a garage, and this kid was throwing rocks. The garage had windows missing in it, and he was throwing rocks in. I was inside, and he was throwing rocks at me through the window. And when I returned fire, the rock came out of my hand prematurely, went up, and took out another window. But the house was a mess anyway, and the lady said, don't worry about it. But I did break a few things over the years. You can't believe it. It's like my first meter I had. Whenever I would do any work in the shop, my meter, it was a Monarch. I bought it with my first pay. I painted a house. The guy really stiffed it to me. It's the father of the kid that never paid me for the $1,000 job or multi-$1,000 job. But anyway, I bought a Monarch meter, and I set it out of the way so I wouldn't break it. And it was down on the floor of the cellar, and I went to move a rack. And the flashlight, it was magnetic flashlight. You could hang it up with the magnet on it. It let loose. It dropped straight down. Went through the meter, and I could do meter movements, but when the glass broke, one piece of it really come down on the needle, and it screwed it up. And I'm like, okay, I got my money's worth out of that Monarch meter. But I've broken a few things. Tools, I'm thinking, yeah, I think diagonal cutters. I think I had a pair one time. Let go. I wasn't abusing it. It was a Japanese frickin' diagonal plug, but I still hate it when I break something. I'm very gentle with tools, and if you look at my bench here, let's see if we can see it that's how sloppy I work. All right, and I wanted to fix that radio so I could go to sleep tonight, and I got it. I found it. It was actually, I didn't even have to undo any wires, but in order to work back, it was the high voltage regulator tube. They have a gas in them. Here it is here. It has a gas in it, and when it conducts, the voltage across the gas stays regulated. If you put more voltage into it, the gas conducts more. You put less voltage, it conducts less, but it regulates the voltage. You can also use a neon bulb for very, very lightweight regulation on high voltage. You can use a neon bulb. Same basically system. No, this is a better word for that. Same theory. There's another word for it. Well, anyway, when I work, I make a real bad mess. It's really annoying. And I took the radio apart. And I have to put it back together, and that's it. But I want to, yeah, that was a good question. So did I ever break anything really bad? And man, all the different places I worked, we had people smash stuff really bad. And let me make sure it's still recording. Still looks like it's working. One time we had a degreasing machine, and it had an upper ring that a coil at the top, and water. When you turn a valve on the water, and you'd run the water through it, it would keep those rings cool, and the freon would come up, and it would hit that area, and it would distill on the sides and back down. So if you ran the machine for a while, you could actually distill the freon in it, and it went bad. It wasn't there. It had heating elements down at the bottom, so the freon would get heated. And what we used to do, we used to shoot a stream of freon at a circuit board, and it would wash all the flux off the board. And really tough boards, you had a toothbrush or whatever. So the boss says to me, he goes, "This ain't working." So I roll over there with the multimeter. I'm in high school, and I open the panel up, and I put everything. I said, "Put it on, make believe it's working," and he does. And I'm measuring. I said, "I got voltage over here on the switch, but it's not getting to the other side of the switch." I turned everything off. I went in there. I did use the ohm meter. I said, "This switch is open," and it was a fancy switch. It was also a breaker. There were two of them side by side. So I said, "All right, I'll take the one switch off, and I'll put it over on the table here for you." And he was going to go somewhere and see if he could get the switch. I come back and I look at the machine, and there's all these jumper wires laying there, and he took the other switch out. So he comes back, and I said, "Why didn't you take the switch?" He goes, he says, "I forgot where you told me you were going to put the switch." I said, "It's right there." "Oh, really?" He says, "I took the other one out, and I took it up to, we had an electronic supplier, and he never saw a switch like that before. And it's an on-off switch, but it's also a breaker. It looks like a breaker switch." So anyway, he goes, "I have to order them." I'm like, "How am I going to wire this thing back up?" I said, you screwed me. I had it all labeled, and oh, you'll figure it out." Man, I want to tell you, you talk about pressure. We get this two switches in. I tighten down the wires, and the boss wants to try it right away. I said, no. So I go over. I have the plug out of the wall. I put my ohm meter across the two pins of the plug that goes in the wall. I have a dead short. And if I had listened to him, I would have had the Sea View. I don't know if you know what the Sea View is. It was a submarine that would go on fire every week on Channel 7, ABC. It was a deep sub military project, but they would actually take torpedoes, and they would have a wreckage on the submarine. But they would fix everything while they're underwater. But anyway, I refused to turn it on, and I went in and I'm looking at the wiring, and I redid the wiring, and then I put it on, and I got one resistance, and then when I put it on, it went lower. And that's there were two different heating settings. I said, "All right, let's try it now," and it worked. But I want to tell you, I had a lot of anxiety because he says, "Those switches will be in there a few weeks. I got a lot of jobs that are backed up." And I'm thinking to myself, I labeled everything on that machine, and this guy didn't listen to where I said I was going to put the switch. And then he takes the other switch out. And of course, there's all jumpers that go between the two switches. There's other wires that he didn't label. And I'm like, what I did was I went with the ones I had labeled, put them on the switch first. And then on his side, that's where I got two wires reversed. And then I used the ohm meter. And that's how I am. I'm very methodic. Other people would just stick the plug in the wall, turn it on, have it blow up, and go, "Oh, well." I'm not like that. That's why that was a really good question. Did I ever really break anything? The guy was trying to teach me. He was stupid. I didn't know there was something wrong with him. I had my license, and he just started. You don't know how to drive a clutch? I said, no, I don't know how to drive a clutch. I said, a very uncoordinated person. And he puts me out in the truck, in the parking lot, and he's telling me how to do it. And I'm not moving yet. So I let the clutch out, and I'm giving it gas, and he's outside the truck. I told him to get in the truck, and he's yelling the orders to me as I'm going down the parking lot, and I'm going to go out into traffic. And what I did was I just took both feet and pressed on the brake and got the thing to slow out. And he's coming up to me, oh, you don't do that. I said, did that? I said, this was a stupid idea. I said, you're yelling at me from the outside of the van. That's when I realized there was something wrong with him. And I said to the boss, I said, yeah, last night the guy tried to help me learn the clutch. And I said, he didn't get in the van with me. And he goes, that was a bad idea. I said, yeah, I told him that. But, oh, you'll be fine. And I said, I told him what I did. But I turned the van so I wouldn't go out in traffic. I turned it towards the building, and the truck stalled out just as it got up to the building. I didn't hit the building. And it's funny stuff. And then one time I was using the snowblower, and all the people that worked there, what they do is they took Alpha towels. We had these towels, industrial towels, and you'd send them out and get them cleaned. They give you another batch, and you use them when you work with chemicals and everything. Well, they would sneak them outside and put them all over their windshield, and then they put bricks on them. And then when the snowstorm, when they would go out to leave, they would take the bricks and throw them down on the ground, and the Alpha towels would freeze. So I had the snowblower. The next morning, I lived across the street. I come down, I opened up the building, let people in, made sure they were working. I took the snowblower out, and as soon as I did that area, I started hitting bricks and frozen Alpha towels, and I lost the shear pin, and I didn't know what a shear pin was. So the boss pulls up later in the day, and in between, I'm going out, I'm working inside, running the snowblower, working inside. And he came in, he goes, you got it almost all done. I said, I would have got done sooner, but half the snowblower is not working. He goes, what do you mean it's not working? I said, it's not turning. He goes, that's a shear pin. I go, I don't know what a shear pin is. I told him, I don't know what that is. So he went over to it. He goes in the back. He was a wood shop teacher in high school before he started the business. And he comes out with these nails. He says, just put one of them, he shows me, put it through this hole and through the shaft and bend it over with these pliers. Hey, it's such a shear pin. If you get anything caught in there, it'll shear the pin off and it'll keep you from breaking the belt. So I'm telling him, I'm running over Alpha towels and bricks. He goes, you kidding? I said, no. I said, they put these Alpha towels over their windshields and then, take them off, walk inside, return the Alpha towels. Don't throw them down on the ground because they froze. And I broke shear pins on Alpha towels, and they're all wrapped up inside the. I'm telling him, he goes, oh, they're unbelievable here. But we had handicapped people, and the company, I won't go into it. It's called Will Way. Where there's a will, there's a way. And the guy really thought I was going to stay there. But a lot of weird things happened there. They wouldn't give me the keys to go in the side of the building. They made me go in through the front all the time. And sometimes the front door, I would go in and I open this glass door or glass window, reach in and hit the buzzer for the door. And it wouldn't always work. And I had to take the glass out of the little window, crawl in through there, and then come up in through the building, and then shut the alarm off. The whole time the alarm's going off. But it's unbelievable. Some of the working with that boss, he had his way of doing everything. And then one day I went up to him and said, I'm leaving. He didn't believe I was leaving. I left. And I told you, I sent him a big crate of oranges. I told you that story once before. He annoyed me. He really did. He used to have these meetings. He made me punch out. And then we'd sit in the cafeteria and blow smoke up my ass. When you get your degree from school and this all. And then I'm not really sure about the degree you're going to get, because I've had other students from that school and they weren't that good. He did everything to try to control my mind so I would stay there. And then when he realized I was really leaving, I found a job. I sent them the big crate of oranges. I think that's it. All right, that's it. Good question.